and this is fatal. And this is fatal. Systemic anaphylaxis is fatal. While localized anaphylaxis, why it's called localized? Because it's occurred in the limited or specific organ or tissue. If it is occurred in the nose only, it's called allergic rhinitis. When it is occurred only in the lung, it's called asthma. And this is usually occurred in the atopic person. Usually, type 1 hypersensitivity occur in the atopic persons. What's atopic person? What do we mean by atopic person? And here the sign and symptoms of the systemic anaphylaxis. If it is occur in the nose, so it is lead to allergic rhinitis. If it is occur in the eye, it lead to conjunctivitis, and in the lung, so it is lead to asthma. Now we return back to what's atopic person. What do we mean by atopic? Atopy, its mean or can be defined as increase in the IgE level in genetically susceptible individual who is predisposed to have allergy against common environmental entity. So mean atopy that increase in the IgE level in genetically susceptible individuals. So the genetic factor is important in the important factor in that lead to atopy. Here, like this baby with atopic dermatitis uh, of the face. How can we diagnose type 1 hypersensitivity reaction? Well, first, we have in vitro, which means outside the body, which is include radio immunosorbent test and abbreviation RIST, radio immunosorbent S&T test. And this test measures the total amount of the IgE in the serum. As, as you know from the previous lecture, that the immunoglobulin either have a specificity specific to each entity, while here measure the whole amount of the IgE. And the second type, which is radio allergosorbent test, which is which is called the RAST test. And this test measures the total amount of the IgE specific for a particular allergen in the serum. For example, specific to the egg, specific to the pollen, specific to the house dust mite. And this can be achieved, and this is done by using serum from the patient. And these two tests can be done by the ELISA, by the RIA test, and in order to determine the total amount or the specific amount. You can differentiate from immuno, this means whole IgE, whole immunoglobulin, while allergo, it means specific allergen. The another test in vivo, which is a skin prick test, which is done in the specific institute in Baghdad, and in this institute we use the forearm of the patient, the flexor part of the forearm, and here with the using of needle injection of the specific allergen, for example, dog, cat antigen, father, and horse, and egg, and after 1 minute or 2 minutes, we observe the swollen or small vesicle in the skin. And this means that the patient is allergic to this allergen. Now we end with the treatment. First, advise the patient to avoid the allergen like house dust, dander, pillow with dander, and avoid egg, penicillin. And second, we'll give the patient drugs, which is the antihistamine, like alarmine. As you know, we usually use during allergy in spring, and which is include epinephrine, thiophyllene, sodium chromoclytate, and the cortisone, corticosteroid in the advanced stage. Here is important is the immune therapy. Immune therapy can be achieved by repeated injections of increasing doses of allergy in order to induce tolerance. And this is called hyposensitization. Hyposensitization, not hyper, hyposensitization. And this mechanism due to shift towards the IgG, specifically IgG4 production. As you know, when allergen enters the body lead to IgE, while here in the vaccination induce the IgG4 by shift to T helper 1 subset and gamma interferon production and interleukin 10 production and turn off IgE response. So there is no production of the IgE. And this type of the antibody is called blocking antibody. And another type of the immunotherapy, monoclonal antibodies against the IgE-Fc receptor, which is present on the cell surface of the mast cell or basophil. Another term which is called the anaphylactoid reaction, and here in we speak about the anaphylaxis, which is the end result of the type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. Now we have another term which is the anaphylactoid reaction. What do we mean by this term or by this reaction? Here, the clinical manifestation same of the anaphylaxis, which can occur in the absence of any evidence of the allergen IgE antibody events. There is no any role of the IgE antibody. The same clinical manifestation, and this is usually occur in the non-immunological release of the vasoactive amines and inflammatory mediators in certain susceptible individuals. So the all mediators of the primary and secondary will release without the contribution of the IgE. So how this can happen? This happen by the IVE radiographic contrast media injection in the patient during the IVP study for the renal system in order to visualize the kidney, ureter, bladder. So inject the patient contrast media intravenously, and this is very sensitized media that lead to allergy immediately. So the physician of the radiology must prepare cortisone, oxygen, because it leads to anaphylactoid reaction. And another, the succinylcholine and the morphine and sometimes idiopathic. Succinylcholine used in the anesthesia, and the morphine, as you know, is sedative, and the sometimes idiopathic. So here the plasma cell, and here the IgE receptor, and the drug will bind to these receptors. The IgE receptor cross-react lead to release the mediators, the primary and secondary mediators of the mast cell or the basophil. So there is no any contribution of the IgE in this procedure. Now we will shift to the fourth type of hypersensitivity, which is type 4 hypersensitivity, delayed type hypersensitivity, T cell, D for delayed, and T type and H hypersensitivity. It consists of two phases. In type 1, we see two exposure, first exposure and second exposure. Here in the type 4, it is of two phases, the initial sensitization phase and the second effector phase. The initial sensitization phase, when the antigen enter the body, the first exposure and first the antigen enter the body. And this, the immunological response will start after 1 to 2 weeks after the primary contact with the antigen. In type 1, the immune response appears within minutes, while here after 1 to 2 weeks, the immune response will be start to act. And this T helper 1 cells are activated, while in the type 1 hypersensitivity, we said what type of cell? We said T helper 2, while here in the delayed type hypersensitivity type 4, T helper 1, which is important. T helper 1 are activated and clonally expanded by antigen with MHC class 2 presented on antigen presenting cell. This is the basic immunology. A T helper 1 cell activated through the antigen presenting cell that present the antigen in association with MHC class 2. What are these antigen presenting cells? This include macrophage and Langerhans cells. And here the macrophage, and here the T helper 1. The T helper T helper 1 cells. And the best example of the type 4 hypersensitivity is TB, the tubercle bacilli, that responsible for disease tuberculosis, which is intracellular bacteria. As you know, all bacteria is extracellular, except the intracellular bacteria, TB leprosi. And here the TB bacilli inside the macrophage. And the